It is happening again. It is happening again.
Welcome to the Rewatchers in the Lodge, the podcast where we watch Twin Peaks. For some of us the first time and some of us the ninth. I'm Tyler Harris here with
Marcus Marinos,
Riley Harris,
Tyler McKinley,
Mitchell Marshall,
Justin Hammer.
The gang is all here. And no extra gang is here this week. Unlike last week where we had extra gang. This is a weird opening. It already feels weird.
Your smoothest of all time.
This is a weird week for Twin Peaks. But let's just get into it. This week we watched Season 2, Episodes 7 and 8. Episode 7, which originally aired November 10th, 1990, was written by Mark Frost and directed by David Lynch. And Episode 8 originally aired November 17th, 1990, written by Scott Frost and directed by Caleb Deschanel. And if you haven't watched them, don't worry. We got you covered. Mitchell has got that sweet, sweet summary, and he's about to hit you with it right now.
Coffee time before we stop crime. One by one, Mike checks Great Northern guests for Bob's spirit. Hawk finds Harold hung himself. Maddie tells the Palmer she's peacing out. At Harold's, Hawk and Coop find Laura's diary. Shelley's budget is short. Leo screams. Audrey tells her dad she was Prudence and knows everything. She questions him and finds out he slept with Laura. Shelley quits her job. Ed is fueling Nadine's delusion at the Double R. Mike Jr.'s back. He and Bobby find tape in Leo's shoes. Cooper finds from Laura's diary that Bob has been menacing her for years. Audrey tells him about her dad and Laura. Coop asks for a warrant to arrest Ben Horn. They have to take him by force. Sarah Palmer crawls around in hysterics. Pete's midnight snack is interrupted by Hachimura. Maybe that's the word. I don't know. Sarah sees a vision of a white horse. Donna and James talk about Harold's suicide. At the bar, Coop, Log Lady, and Sheriff listen to music while Bobby drinks underage. Coop has an alien vision. Leland sees Bob in the mirror. He puts on gloves and strangles Maddie. After chasing her down more, he holds her while he's crying about Laura. Then Bob kisses her chin and slams her into a picture before placing a letter under her nail. The Great Northern room service guy is at the bar and tells Cooper he is sorry. Donna breaks down. Bobby has a moment. We see red curtains behind Cooper. Leland did it. Leland is golfing in the living room, NBD. Donna and James come to say goodbye to Maddie, who is dead, in Leland's golf bag. The Horn brothers smoke in Ben's new jail cell. Jerry is a really bad lawyer. Lucy and her sister have a very racist exchange with Hawk and a baby. Leland dances away until Harry and Coop inform him that they have arrested Ben. He's demented with happiness. Doc takes some very fake Ben Horn blood. Coop calls him out on being a pervert. Bobby is doctoring Leo voicemail audio for some plan. Norma's mom brings her new hubby to the Double R for their honeymoon. One-armed Mike attacks his guard and escapes. Hank sweet talks Norma and greets his just regular mother-in-law. Harry and Pete bond over loving Josie really awkwardly. Andy sees Lucy with a baby and faints, clearly not knowing how long a gestation period is. Cackling Pete helps Catherine blackmail Ben with her alibi confirmation. Leland almost hits Harry and Cooper, swerving and singing on the road. Sperm gun conversation. One-armed Mike sniffs Horn and reveals he ain't Bob. Harry charges him with the crime anyway. At Norma's family dinner, her mom's new lover reveals he was in the clink with Hank. Audrey comes to visit the shirtless Coop in his hotel room. She tells him she didn't get busy at One-Eyed Jack's, just in case he was wondering. And then he gets a call. They found Maddie's body. What a cliffhanger!
Wow. A lot of stuff. So these two episodes, I feel like we see a higher concentration of actual stuff about the case. Yeah. Over the last few weeks, it's been pretty evenly split between the convoluted mill plots and other stuff and the actual case of Laura Palmer's murder. But this, we get a lot more of that. So let's get the little stuff out of the way first. Let's talk about the mill plot real quick. We don't get a lot of that in these episodes, but it is revealed that Tajimura is...
Oh, that's it. Yeah.
Hachimura, sure. Is Catherine. Which I want to talk about this a little bit because we didn't talk about this last week, and I wish we had. In season 2 of Twin Peaks, there is a name in the opening credits. The name is Fumio Yamaguchi,
Oh no.
which is a fake name for a fake actor
Oh my goodness.
playing Tajimura. I've
Maybe I wasn't the only one fooled.
You definitely weren't. And there, I've spent a lot of time on some forums of people who've been rewatching it recently, and it's split pretty 50-50. Like, there are plenty of people who that just didn't occur to, that it might be Catherine. And also, I will say, like I've mentioned, I finished reading Reflections, which is a great book. Everyone should read it. That's just about behind the scenes of Twin Peaks. And no one on set knew either.
You're joking.
I'm not joking. Like, she would come to set and stay in her trailer until they were ready to shoot, go on to set, and then get off of set as quickly as she could, and would keep her distance from everyone.
Wait, including the other actors?
Yes, yeah.
That blows my mind.
Yeah. So, like, the guy who plays Ben Horn figured it out pretty quick. Like, he knew. But the guy who plays Pete Martell, Jack Nance, had no fucking idea. Even after they shot the King and I scene, like, at the Great Northern, where he's like, the King and I. Like, he still didn't know. Yeah.
That's incredible.
So he didn't know until they filmed that scene where Tajimura kisses him. He didn't realize it was Catherine until he got the pages for that scene. So, so definitely a little vindication for Mitchell last week.
I'm just as smart as Pete. I should
evolution
get a
thing,
mill.
you know, like the tendon thing in your wrist. Like some people have it, some people don't.
Right, yes, yeah. Some people have Tajimura vision, and others.
Yeah, exactly. It makes sense because we were once monkeys. Guys, I'm really tired. I spent all day in the sun, and I'm like, honestly, since we've been talking, I've been in and out a few times.
I don't think of you as an outdoors person.
I was weeding my jungle in my backyard.
That sucks.
Yeah, it does.
That's my least favorite chore as a child.
It hurt.
Owning a jungle is a big commitment.
It is.
And I think you've learned that.
I wish
now.
I would have known before I bought the fucking jungle.
Thankfully, it's just his backyard. It's not mine, too.
Somehow it hasn't spread over at all.
So yeah, does anyone else have anything about like the mill plot stuff? Because there's some stuff with Bobby and Shelley. We have the tape that Bobby finds.
Is that what
that basically implicates Leo with Ben Horn as the one who did the mill fire. Anything in there you guys want to talk about? Anything that stood out with those?
When Pete goes to visit Ben, he plays the tape.
Right.
That's like mixed in with all that, or is that?
So that's a different tape because that's the Catherine Martell.
Yeah.
That's just her.
But it's her trying to get like.
Yeah. That's
the
her
deed
play
and
for the
everything.
mill, for
Okay.
sure. Yeah. So yeah, she has an alibi. She's the one that can confirm that Ben Horn did not kill Laura Palmer because they were together that night, which now Pete knows.
But
They
he's
got a
still
weird
on
relationship.
board.
Very
Yeah.
weird.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We haven't even seen Horn's wife or son since season 1, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to say since like
Oh man, I
the
forgot about
pilot
them.
or
Yeah.
the second episode.
Really?
Yeah.
But you know who I never forgot about? Fucking Mike. He's back, and I am pumped. I was so psyched when I finally saw him.
And it's one very quick cameo.
Yeah. Yeah. Mike, I feel
Cameo
like,
at this point.
yeah, exactly. I feel like Mike is a pretty high school. We'll call him high school Mike, or
High school
football
Mike.
Mike,
Right.
Letterman Mike. I don't know. I guess we could go a
Action
million
Mike.
directions. Action Mike. Oh no,
That's already
reserved for
trademarked.
Ben Mike.
It's trademarked.
Oh boy.
But yeah, Mike comes in. Mike, like, he arrives on screen. And I'm like, oh yeah, I hate you. Like, he's just walks in and immediately confirms that he's as big an asshole as you remember. Like,
You thought all
okay,
this time he
cool.
was helping him with homework and being a good
I
student.
know.
Like, oh no,
I
wait.
was
He's a
really
piece of shit.
I was giving him more credit than he deserved. But yeah, so they find the tape basically proving that Leo was a part of the mill fire, and it basically sets up this is the second person that will be blackmailing Ben Horn.
like it
right?
just he just keeps getting into deeper and deeper shit. Poor guy.
yeah.
Well, no,
yeah.
He deserves it.
I mean, he owns a casino and a brothel, so I don't
He's a
know.
serial
whatever.
statutory rapist at the least.
Yeah. Anyways, so So yeah, all that stuff is kind of chugging along. I feel like there's not a whole lot to talk about. There's some more weird scenes with Leo. Bobby just licking spilled food off Shelly at some point in a way that I did not find sexy at all.
No.
And I have an open
have you
mind.
found any of their scenes particularly sexy?
That's for our other podcast,
Okay.
Rewatchers After Dark.
They're just two horny kids, you know?
Yeah.
No, you find the weird things. I don't know.
You find the weird
I don't
things.
know.
They're everywhere. Yeah, I mean, definitely not the weirdest stuff we've heard about in Twin Peaks.
I
by
mean,
any
they were
means.
kind of getting
Absolutely
turned
not.
on
It's
by
not
kind of
weird.
getting frisky in front of a catatonic dude.
Right.
Celebrating his birthday.
Oh man! But when
I'm
Leo,
getting hot just thinking about it.
we're gonna take a quick commercial break.
This podcast is brought to you by Skinamax.
I was gonna say when Leo just starts screaming.
Oh,
That
yeah,
was
yeah.
pretty-
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I love just the mouth noises and nishes.
Yeah.
It's really good.
But they do find something in the new shoes.
Yeah,
He
which is
hammers
a
off
tape.
the soles of the shoes where he's hiding a tape.
Yeah.
I mean, did Leo think of this?
I mean, presumably.
Did his shoe, what is that, cobbler, think of it?
Yeah,
He went to his
probably.
cobbler and he just said, look.
I take all my most pressing issues to my cobbler for
Isn't there an Adam
advice.
Sandler movie called The Cobbler?
Yes, there
terrible.
is.
I haven't
Awful.
seen it
Don't-
yet.
Don't even bother.
Yeah.
I kind of enjoyed Murder Mystery, I'm not going to lie to you.
Implication.
Yeah, yeah.
The implication with those shoes is that Leo got those from One Arm Mike, right?
The other shoes, but below the floorboards at least.
Because they're the same.
Yeah.
The same brand that
Yeah.
Andy, right? Andy got
Right.
new shoes. And
Yeah,
it's like
I
the
think
exact same thing.
I think that's the implication. But yeah, the tape, like, I think he put the tape there. Like, that was
Okay,
his safe
okay,
spot
got
for
it.
the tape, right? Because, yeah. That's why I would think, I don't know why else he would be mentioning the shoes himself. Like, if someone else had gotten the tape and hidden them in his shoes and, like, can't wait till he finds this and thinks, and knows
Well, I didn't know.
someone's
It's like,
watching
hey, I need a place to hide these, cobbler. And he's like, I've got just the place. Like,
him. Get me a hammer. But yeah, so that stuff is still kind of unfolding. Let's talk about Andy and Lucy really quick. Just getting better and
Well,
better.
what's her name? Gwen,
Gwen, yes.
Lucy's sister. Ugh, not a fan.
I do love. I am always impressed with. I think that actress does a great job of playing a very believable sister
Agreed.
to
Agreed.
Lucy. For
Good
sure.
casting.
Yeah.
She's great. But yeah, her exchange with Hawk is just.
Oh gosh.
What's his name? Eagle Eye.
Yeah, she starts that and she's like, "Do you just hate us white people for everything we've done to you?"
And just Hawk, just
Some of my best friends are white.
smooth as fuck.
also, I'm half white, apparently. Not me. I'm quoting. I'm bad at this. Hawk is very mixed race, isn't he? Like, he's not?
It will become more apparent when you see some other stuff. But yeah, no, he is native.
Like 100%.
100%.
Oh,
yeah.
wow.
Yeah.
The actor may not be, like, he's not, like...
No, the actor is.
Oh,
That's
he
what I'm
is
saying.
too?
His
Oh,
name is
okay.
Michael Horse. He's he's a Native American
Okay.
for sure. Yeah.
Oh.
And like I said, that will become, because I
Is that wrong of me? Does
No,
he not
I-
look extremely white?
No, I kind of thought the same thing.
He definitely has a complexion that could be mixed race.
You'll see him a little bit later, and you'll be like, "Oh yeah, okay, yeah, it's
Okay.
yeah." Anyways,
Gotcha.
But yeah, they do weird Indian stuff in this show that I'm not sure how to feel about it.
I did weird Indian stuff in Boy Scouts, but I'm still here. It's all good.
That's the best justification for that ever. Yeah.
But yeah, so Gwen arrives. She has that wonderful conversation about her son, who she clearly loves very much, about holding him right after he was born, and just being mad. Does she call her son a sperm gun?
Yeah.
Or is that what she calls it?
Just another
Yeah.
sperm gun.
Just
in the
another
world.
sperm.
Which everyone knows,
Another
we as males
sperm gun into the
prefer
world.
sperm cannon. That's our preferred.
Pick a weapon, any weapon.
But I mean, you have a child.
Yeah.
And so I imagine that was your immediate thought after holding your child.
Well,
for the
I'm
first
also
time.
a sperm gun.
Right. So you're like,
canon.
nice.
Ah, good.
So-
I've doubled
so it's
the
like-
family sperm gun.
I'm not the one to ask. You would have to ask the superior sex of women, to give you a judgment on that. But when I don't know, I held that slimy thing and I was like, this looks like a swollen Alec Baldwin. What am I supposed to do with this?
Oh, all that placenta juice all over it. You're not thinking about sperm?
Placenta juice.
Brought to you by placenta juice.
Oh no, nope.
Joined by
all right,
MLM.
let's move on.
And we're back.
But I will say that that whole section with Andy, first of all, him coming in and seeing that baby, and again, I feel like one of those scenes where like it's immediately kind of sweet. Like there's this moment where you're like, oh, they have realized that they should do this or they could do this. You know what I mean? And then just passes out because he believes that is the baby that she's been pregnant with for, at this point, probably 6 days? 5 to 6 days based on the timeline that we have for this show?
I didn't even think about that.
Yeah. Which, if that was true, it would be alarming enough to make a grown man pass out, I'm sure. But...
And this is a plot twist they're trying to throw on us later. Like, that's not actually her baby.
Right.
And he thinks whatever, like, the baby she will have is his, but she's pretty sure from the timing of her, it is big...
infidelity.
Big Dick.
Yeah.
What's his name?
Dick Tremaine.
Tremaine.
Big Dick
Thank you,
Tremaine.
yeah.
But he's a
Missed
little
that
penis.
guy.
He's a little penis.
Yeah.
His name is Dick. Don't...
I also want to note the conversation about sperm guns takes place in the same corner that presumably still houses the remnants of Andy's sperm sample. That
A
he was
doTERRA
giving
bottle
to-
of sperm.
I'm worried about the
Roller
broken
bottle of
glass, and then someone has to scrub up the dried...
Yeah.
I honestly
Residue.
think that's going to come back later. It's going to be a plot point later.
Yeah.
It's going to be a clue.
Spoiler alert, it's a big deal in season 3. You'll want to remember this sperm. But yeah, so that's still just plugging along. We have the addition of the new character of Norma's mom.
Do we know her name?
Prediction. Norma's mom is P.T. Wentz or whoever the hell, W.T. Wentz.
W.T. Wentz.
Yeah.
Oh.
Because she immediately comes in and starts making comments about her diner and stuff. It's either her or her new husband, or
Right.
both of them together are W and T Wentz. I don't know. But yeah, just the way she's talking, I'm like, and then how Norma reacts to her, how she's like very cold towards her. I'm like, oh, of course this is going to be the
a very
one customer.
critical woman.
The one customer she's not like super nice to is the one who ends up actually being it.
Right.
But she's going to give her a good review in it because she's going to see the good that she puts into her diner.
Well, and I will say, and the way she talks about her food at the Great Northern, she's like,
Yeah,
the salmon
exactly.
was
Yeah,
good.
That's a good point.
All these things.
Fresh
A little
and
undercooked
firm.
or overcooked. Yeah, she's like using these very like colorful language for all that. So yeah, I think that's probably a pretty good prediction.
Also, can we talk about Hank?
Let's talk about him.
What the fuck?
I don't know the fuck.
So not in these episodes. We didn't mention it before, but Hank fights Josie's associate
Yeah.
in the diner.
Yeah.
And then we cut to him getting his ass kicked, and we cut away. And then the next time we see him, he's just like walking into a room and talking to someone. That's never like addressed, I don't think.
Well, is the last time we okay?
At
yeah,
One-Eyed
yeah,
Jacks,
you're
right?
And then after that is he goes to One-Eyed Jacks,
Yeah.
and then the French dude John Renault gets him and is like,
yeah.
"Oh, who's this?"
Attorney, what's his name?
And then the next scene, he's walking into the diner. The next scene he's in.
And the biggest thing we have is like Norma's like, "Where the fuck have you been?" And he's like, "Listen, there are people in my life." He's like trying to be the action hero. I'm like, dude, no,
Yeah.
no.
It's multiple occasions now where like he's had an intercourse. Wow, an altercation.
Well, you guys are watching the
I missed that
unrated
scene.
version.
Yeah, and
I have my parental block on
then
Netflix, so.
should be dead. So I'm still sticking with my thing that he might be a clone. Like those are other dead clones at this point.
Honestly, that would make sense. Like, what's his relationship with Mr. Lee? Right, that's his name. And then fucking he just gets kidnapped by Jean, and then he's fine. And also Norma forgives him right away.
Yeah.
It's just like, hey, don't worry about it. You were gone for 2 days. Sight.
Especially with all the
Sight.
history between them. Yeah, respect for Norma just plummets every episode. Because she
He's
doesn't
in love
have
with
for
everyone.
herself.
Oh man, but with the scene where Nadine and Ed come in and Nadine fucking just shatters the
yes.
milkshake with her bare hands.
Let's talk about that really quick. Man, the fact that Nadine's super strength becomes like a big deal is like one of my favorite things that they set up early in this show, is of her like breaking that exercise equipment and everyone just being like, man, this show's so weird. And they're like, oh, hold on a minute, just wait. And that scene, like we should definitely talk about kind of the specifics of that episode. It's a David Lynch episode, so of course I think it's awesome. But like that scene is so long, like it just goes forever.
Yeah.
And just of her like whirling around and looking at her bloody hands, and like it's rough, man. It's a weird, bizarre
else.
thing. And poor Ed. I love Ed in all these scenes with Norma because he has no idea what to do. And is just scrambling. Like, it's like he hasn't thought about the implications of taking her out in public at all. Or, like, because he's, like, immediately has to be like, oh, no, you've only been working here for a month or something, right? Yeah. It's crazy because we've just been playing football at high school. It's just, what a mess.
Just playing into her weird fascination, knowing she's super strong and taking her out, and then not trying to find a solution or telling people like she's got nuts. What should I do? Because man, he could commit her to an asylum and be rid of her. And I mean it in the sweetest way.
But what happens when she breaks out of that asylum and decides to kill him?
Yeah,
with her
She is
hands?
Michael. This is a prequel to Michael
I
Myers.
was just gonna say.
Add it to the list.
I mean, we've already got an escaped insane asylum E, right?
True. Yes. Presumably
yeah.
that we have yet to see.
I forget his name.
Wyndham Earl.
Wyndham Earl.
Yeah. No.
This might be the first man that's not real in this show. Wyndham Earl.
Oh, the fact that Andy could be real and Diane couldn't is probably not. Is just really keeps me up at night. Real double standard there. But yeah, so crazy. I mean, there's just wacky stuff happening in Twin Peaks with everyone. But let's kind of talk about the big parts of these episodes. Let's talk about the Laura Palmer stuff. And let's kind of start from the beginning with that of them going to the Great Northern, where everyone in the Navy has been gifted bouncy balls.
That scene, as soon as it cut, I was like, why is it so loud in here?
And then it hides that information from you for so long, and then you finally see and you're like, oh, I should have known.
I was like, I thought like, oh, like Leland's nearby and he's like tap dancing or some shit again. Like,
Yeah.
Here we go. But no, it's just a bunch of sailors with bouncy balls. Do we know why the sailors are there?
No, it's just a thing.
a weird thing
It
they're doing.
feels like the second season of The Great Northern has been every time we show The Great Northern in an episode, what weird thing can be going
Right.
on there? Because we had like Ben Horn talking to
The Icelanders.
and then like swimsuit models or something.
Oh yeah, I
Pageant-
forgot about that.
Yeah, some kind of.
I thought that
pageant
was gonna like
going
work
on.
into the plot somehow, and then it just went away.
Yeah, no, it's just color for the Great Northern, just weird shit to go on there. I do want to say the opening shot of this episode too, of them all drinking coffee at the sheriff's department, is like a pretty direct callback to the Tibetan rock throwing thing, where they're standing out in front of the chalkboard and they're all lined up like that, and it's such a weird shot. And I love it so much. Just like, it's so good.
I just love how Mike or Gerard or whatever his name
Yeah.
was, he was just there with them.
Yeah.
Just sipping some coffee.
And he like has his thing. He just repeats the same thing he said last episode, and the music swells, and then immediately dies. And Cooper's like, "So like 10:30, good for you? You doing this now? All right, cool."
All right, then. He keeps fucking saying that. We get it. We know it's the Great Northern. All right. Jesus.
Right.
And Lynch is like saying bye to all of them. What's Lynch's character's name again?
Gordon Cole.
Yeah, he's just like saying bye to him. He gets to him. It's just like this awkward exchange. Like,
Yeah. Take good care of Mike. Love that line. But yeah, so they go to the Great Northern. They're bringing everyone one by one in the noisiest room in the world in front of a man with one arm to see if he feels anything. And then he has this incredible reaction, presumably when Ben Horn enters and loses his mind. And then all the while this is happening, while everyone else gets the party at the Great Northern, Hawk is off on his own, as usual, doing real work. And he finds, he goes to Harold Smith's apartment. He finds Harold Smith has hung himself, presumably, and that's what it looks like, and his apartment's been trashed. But yeah, and then does he find the diary then? I can't remember if they find it then or later.
Yeah, it's when they're looking through the room. I think Cooper possibly picks it up.
Okay.
They're just like sorting through all the papers that are scattered across the floor, and I think they find it.
Also, when Cooper shows up at Harold Smith's apartment, remind me, that's the scene where there's like just the flash bulb,
Yes.
Yeah.
like stuff
so
going on.
bright.
It's so bizarre. Yeah, like every time they're like walking into a room, just like the flash bulbs, and it's a really interesting, weird thing that I feel like we haven't seen yet. And might see again. I don't remember honestly, but yeah, that stuff's really interesting. But yeah, I guess the other big thing we have in this is, I mean, Ben Horn becomes a big part of Laura's story this week, in a way that we haven't seen him before. Like, we know that he is somehow involved. Like, we know that there was some kind of tie there. But Audrey super confronts him in this episode, in a really awkward, like, it is, that's a hard conversation to watch. And it's one of those things I'm glad it happened, because we've kind of talked about that, like, the scene last time where he comes in and sits on the bed with her after is so uncomfortable, and it's cool to see that they kind of pay that off and they don't just let it slide. Is this weird thing, like there is this damage that is confronted by both those characters in that scene, and basically is like, in pretty certain terms, he slept with Laura Palmer.
Yeah, he pretty much admits it.
The most surprising thing to me was there's a picture of her on his desk, and he says that he loved her, which was so out of the blue. Like, that caught me completely off guard.
Yeah.
So many grown men love Laura Palmer.
Yeah. It's yep. Yeah, Laura Palmer, man. But yeah, it's such a bizarre thing, and I think that's one of the things that this show does really well is, especially in these episodes, reframing the way you think about people pretty frequently. Like, there are these little revelations throughout this show that like completely change the way you look at a character. We've seen that with Laura throughout the show. You're constantly reevaluating what she was into, like who she was as a person. And it's really interesting. I think it's cool to see that stuff. But yeah, so they, and Cooper kind of has, like, Audrey tells Cooper about it. He also has reconstructed the diary enough to basically, in Laura Palmer's own words, get the phrase, "Someday I'll let the world know who Ben Horn really is." Which is a pretty great setup for, like, there's this spirit named Bob that's hanging out in people, and maybe that's who Ben Horn really is. You know what I mean? I think that's the logic that Cooper follows, and that. So let's kind of talk about that sequence, because basically from that sequence to the end of the episode, which I think is like 15 minutes still left in the episode, from when they go and arrest Ben Horn, who's in a meeting with Tajimura. First of all, Tajimura's in that entire scene. It's one of those scenes I'm like, man, this is such a great scene. And then I look up, I'm like, who is that? Oh, it's Catherine Martell in the worst, like, race makeup I've ever seen. Just in the background of that scene. And she's the only one left in that room at the end of that scene too, which is just bizarre. But yeah, let's kind of talk about like the arrest and kind of all that stuff that follows. What kind of stuck out to you guys with that stuff?
I love how when they come in to arrest him, in typical Ben Horn style, right? He kind of denies it and acts like a dick, but at the end of it all, he starts to walk out and he's like, "I'm gonna go for a sandwich."
Out this secret door.
I'm going through my secret door. Out of all the things, we do know he loves sandwiches, so it's understandable. But it's
even though he doesn't know how to eat them. Maybe that's why they're so fascinating to him. He's like, these sandwiches, huh? What a mystery they are.
Take another stab at it.
Yeah.
Before I go into the prison, I need to give it one more shot. I heard they don't have sandwiches there.
He really seems to believe, though, that he's like, they won't actually just take me.
Right, yeah.
yeah.
I mean, he, like, they reference it's like, he kind of makes this town. He makes a lot of money for this town. You know what I mean? Like, there's no way that the law is going to be there for him. But they are, and they take him into custody. And I guess we watched it together, except for you, Marcus. Were you, so at this point, where were you on your, like, killer theory? Because you did talk last week. You had mentioned that you thought Leland was the killer, which turns out to be true. But, like, at this point, were you questioning that at all, or?
I was kind of sticking with my theory.
Okay.
I didn't think Ben Horn did it. It just, like, for me, it was, the story was pointing to, yes, it's Ben Horn. Mm-hmm. All these signs are pointing towards him. And for me, it was just, okay, like, that's what the story wants me to think. And I just had Leland in the back of my mind, but at the same time, I didn't want it to be Leland. I didn't want it to be him, because it's just, like you said, the way the show is written, it changes your perception of each character in an instant. Mm-hmm. And for the show to do something like that to a character that you are empathizing with the entire show, and then it just flips that on its head, and you're just like, fuck no.
Yeah,
I didn't want to be right.
Yeah,
but I was.
Here's the thing, though. Was it Leland? I mean, obviously it was Bob, but it was Leland.
Right.
And now you can, I guess, rewatch all that and wonder when was he him and when was he Bob. The other thing is, I definitely thought this later in episode 8, the second one. I wonder how much Bob cares if Leland gets caught. I don't know how the science of his possession works, but it seems like he could just, he could rot in prison and it wouldn't affect Bob one bit. And I wonder if, one thing I'm wondering, if Bob's are now our villain, what's his motivation?
right.
Because
So that's in 2 episodes ago when Mike just does drop the knowledge of, like, he's at the Great Northern. He mentions, one of the things he says in talking about Bob is he feeds on the sorrows and the pleasures. And so, as much as that is a hint to, I think, going along with what you're saying of, like, it's not about getting caught or staying free for Bob. It's about generating as much fucking sorrow as he can, and then, you know what I mean? And, like, so it is an interesting, like, motivational thing, and those are really good questions, though.
I guess we can just talk about how that scene, while disturbing, where Leland kind of looks in the mirror, you realize he's Bob, and then the entire interaction with Sarah Palmer and Maddie is just pretty incredible. Just the way he freaks out and is just going back and forth. We don't really get the idea that, like, you can fight this off like you kind of can with, like, something like the Imperious Curse. That's the only thing that comes to mind. But
or Gerard has his chemicals that he injects. Right. However, he figured that out.
Just seemed during that, like, he went from sobbing to, like, licking her face. And at the end of the scene, I was thinking she might survive. I was hoping someone would show up, someone would get the message, and to open the next one and know that she's gone. She gets discovered, of course, at the very end the same way. I was really sad, and I was like, man, I really hope they bring this actress back in a third role. I feel so bad.
No, she really is great. Like, I stand by. I feel like I am going to change my opinion every time I watch this, but really, the trio of the Palmer family, like those actors, and like Grace Zabriskie, is that her name? I think it's Grace Zabriskie. And Ray Wise and Shirley are so... I just love their performances so much every time I watch the show. But yeah, I think... Because we cut there right after Ben's arrested. Like, it's amazing that it's the scene directly after that it's like, we got our guy. And then it's just like, do you? You know? And they cut that scene up into 3 pieces. It's so long. It is painstakingly long. And I think the other thing to note is... in a show where music is underscoring almost every second of this show, this scene literally has the end of a record looping.
Yeah.
Which feels like this extreme like meta commentary and like pointed thing to like let the audience know in no uncertain terms that this is different, you know, setting it apart. And it is extremely unsettling also. Like on just the subconscious level of that music being absent, you feel it.
Here's the thing. David Lynch has a style, and most of it I enjoy. I don't know if it's my favorite storytelling technique, but I enjoy it, or it is effective. But there are moments where I almost wish, and you can't do it with every tone, but that is something, that's a little bit of genius. And that's what you want to see in other places, and that's how a few of his quirky things, and maybe some of his funny stuff is really smart too. It just doesn't quite fit with Twin Peaks, so we don't appreciate it the same. But that record scratching and just a few other little moments in that episode when you can tell this is kind of him bringing together a certain culmination of his vision, like they're pretty freaking awesome.
Yeah. Well, and I will say, like the end of episode 7 in particular is a pretty good metric for what you're going to get from a David Lynch movie. Like that's if you enjoyed the last 15 minutes of this episode, like that's probably good. You will probably enjoy a Lynch movie. Like you should check it out. But yeah, that is like just undistilled David Lynch, I feel like, at the end of this episode. But yeah, so we have that scene. We've talked a little bit about that scene with Leland. Sarah sees a white horse in the room, which you weren't here. We did watch the Log Lady intro for this episode.
Oh, interesting.
And the closing line of the Log Lady intro for this episode is "Woe unto those who behold the pale horse," and then it goes into the episode. And so, I mean, I'm not sure entirely what that means, but
do we also know? That scene is so well done, but I also have so many questions.
Yeah,
because the whole time I'm focused on Leland and kind of sort of just this transformation and this horrible thing that's going on. But then you look at Sarah and she's kind of out of it and she's crawling on the floor and she sees this white horse. And then you have, you're questioning, okay, is Bob sort of merging with Leland even more, or is he still trying to fight against him, or has he consumed Leland completely?
Right, yeah.
I want answers to those questions. I don't know if we'll get them, but it was a very intense scene.
Yeah.
Very intense.
Yeah, for sure.
One thing we still haven't heard about is the alien signals that Bobby is that? Am I mixing?
Yeah,
Bobby's dad talks about coming in. Like, is there a link, and how deep do we get of explanation from that? Are they connected? But I just wonder how much logic there is to kind of these two beings we have in Mike and Bob that are everywhere, and if they do have connections to that. Like, clearly there's some other weird crap going around in the city. So when you kind of are like, I don't know about those explanations, I want to know if they're connected to that.
Well, we know in some way they're connected because the Cooper was something they got at the moment he was shot, like when he was shot. So yeah,
and he's having like, these visions stuff, but I don't know if like that big weird looking alien dude or whatever that's talking to him, does he have any sort of, like, he's trying to help them presumably figure this out so more people don't get hurt and so they can be at peace with Laura's death or whatever. But does he have any relationship to these other beings? Like, are they from the same arena? What about the fireball he put into Cooper? Anyway.
Right, yeah.
I do wonder if they're going to, like, give us a satisfactory answer to the giant, or if it's going to be just one of those things that's like, what the fuck was that? And that's why there's so many fan theories, you know? Like, I'm thinking that's what's going to happen because they'd have a lot to answer for as far as, like, okay, why the fuck isn't he just being like, this is who it is? Like, he obviously knows things that are happening in Cooper's future. So why he's not just blurting it out, if there's a reasoning to why Cooper needs to go through the steps, like very Matrix-esque of like, you need to be told one thing to like realize another thing and learn it yourself.
Right.
Otherwise you won't achieve the goal or whatever it may be. I don't know if they're going to go there. I'd be interested to see what that's all about. I really hope he can. I hope they don't answer in season 2 and then he comes back in season 3. That would be preferable for me.
Yeah, and I will say one of the other things that I think is notable about kind of this sequence, and particularly the Cooper sequence, which is really, for some reason, that scene at the Roadhouse is so emotionally resonant for me. Like that, just when the giant does appear on the stage and just says it's happening again. It's happening again. And then we have the return of the bellhop from the opening of this season, where he just comes over and says, "Yeah, I'm so sorry for your loss." And I feel like that's a notable connection, is that we've only seen that bellhop in direct relation to the giant. Don't know exactly what that means, but that's something, it is an interesting thing. I also want to point out Donna and Bobby are at the Roadhouse, also have emotional reactions to what is happening. James is a fucking wall. Has no idea what the hell is going on. I don't know. That's a
drinking,
good thing to know
right?
too. I don't.
And so is
probably.
And so is Bobby.
Yeah.
Bobby definitely is.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I know Bobby drinks, but the fact that they're in a bar and no one gives a shit that these high school kids are drinking.
Well, once you drop out, they're like, yeah, all right. He's not in high school anymore.
Well, I think especially it's the early 90s in a very small town. Who knows? But yeah, so that whole sequence, and the log lady also is someone that we get that, like, she is getting cryptic messages with no specifics necessarily, other than that
From her logs, man.
some shit's going
I have
on.
a question about that, actually, for everybody.
Yeah.
So, with all of the cryptic messages that Cooper got from the giant, such as, like, the smiling bag and without chemicals, he points, and so we have answers to all of those, but he also says, like, the owls are not what they seem, and then the log lady says the owls are at the Roadhouse. Do we have a definitive answer, or at least any theories about what the owls actually are? What do you guys think? Because I'm still kind of stumped on that one.
Because of what happened in that scene, I'm thinking that the owls could be paired with the parasites somehow. So, like, there were parasites at the Roadhouse, and then, like, the giant showed up, and I feel like he's tied to them in some way. So I'm thinking that could be what they're called, maybe. So it's not like the actual birds, the owls. It's, I don't know. I don't know.
I like that. I think there's definitely a relation between, like, the parasites and the giant. They seem to be these entities or spirits, but some of them are bad, like Bob. Some of them are good, like the giant, and some of them are kind of neutral, like Mike. Fuck.
This is brought to you by the 2001 classic starring Lil Bow Wow. Or Lil Romeo. I still don't know. No, it's Bow Wow. I googled it last week. I'm curious too. I wanted to know who killed Laura. And I don't think if we were doing this podcast, I would have known before it actually got revealed. I don't know though. By saying it's someone at the Great Northern, I might have actually gotten it. But I more want the people in Twin Peaks to know. And I would not be surprised if only some find out or no one finds out. Ben Horn has too much going on that I think he'll actually stay in prison. I do think it'd be a nice subversive move to literally put him in prison for life for something he didn't do and leave Leland out there to see how many more people he can kill. But you gotta think he's already killed 2 more people. And they're gonna find a letter under Maddie's fingerprint.
Yeah.
So that is the most important thing to me, is I don't actually see in the post, like, episode 7 is in a way a big reveal, but it's not treated like a traditional big reveal.
Yeah.
And then in episode 8 we see some of the fallout, but we don't see them really get any closer.
Yeah.
And because Lynch's style is so different, although Mr. Deschanel, you have obviously given the world tons of wonderful art through your direction and your daughters, It's not that I dislike that episode in any way. I thought it did a lot of other interesting things, but it felt like, okay, we're in a different. Things are different now.
Yeah.
We're not pursuing the 6 and 7 actually went together really well, and the pace at which we went into the revelation and the weird things that happened in the buildup were awesome. And so episode 8 still good, but it felt like it's like, okay, now we're just going to turn away for a little bit. We're not going to keep that same momentum going.
Yeah.
Maybe that's because it's a 22 episode season and it doesn't need to be. And I so far haven't seen anything that I really hate and feel like is wasted time. Well, Hachimura. But
How dare you?
I don't. It's just interesting because Lynch's tone is different, and then you have all the momentum of the story, and then it shifts, and the tone is different in the next episode. It's just something I couldn't help but know. So my next thing is to, like, when you ask about the owls and those theories, I'm like, we didn't. I feel like we didn't make more progress on the supernatural front or on the characters finding out what we know.
Yeah. Yeah, and we mentioned that earlier, like, that is a thing this show does, is that's atypical, I feel like, from most of the crime shows on now, for sure.
Yeah.
And even shows that share DNA with this show, like, you are privy to information that most of the characters are not. And I think particularly with the Leland thing, one of the positive sides of that is it does instill in you this sense of kind of hopelessness, because you have this information that would be incredibly helpful to literally everyone in the town at this point. But you can't do anything, you know what I mean? Yeah. And so you also get to watch Leland be a fucking maniac.
Yeah. Which is just pretty fun, honestly. Like, him just hitting golf balls, swerving down the road, like, that's enjoyable.
Yeah. The scene where he is like, can I show you my golf clubs?
Oh,
let me show you my golf
goodness.
clubs. Like,
yeah.
Good.
Like,
that's where I was like, he's
wonder,
reckless.
Like, I don't know. When that happened, I was wondering, as well as like leading connections to the stuff in the fingernails, the letters in the fingernails, of like how much does Leland actually know himself?
Yeah.
And is it like a subconscious thing? And like, is he subconsciously like trying to get caught? That's why he's like leaving clues in the
Driving
fingernails and like being like,
recklessly.
hey, you want to check out these golf clubs? Like, not necessarily knowing like, oh, there's a body in there, but like something in him says like, here's a way out of Bob, right? Like,
That is a great.
I don't know if that's
And I wonder, too, if some of his mourning is from knowing.
Yeah.
It's not just being sad, but regretful.
And I was gonna say like that reveal of him being the murderer does give a lot more weight to those moments that even honestly beforehand like were a little much for me, of his like jumping on the coffin and his dancing with the picture, which like fits tone fine, but like sometimes I mean he'll hate me for saying it, but they're a little long. And I think the impact of those moments were hurt before I knew this by being that long. And now I bet going back, I feel like they would feel a lot more beneficial being as long as they are because of what Leland has actually done.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I feel like those things kind of go, like all those little details kind of go back to the fact that Bob feeds on sorrow. Mm-hmm. And so he's probably inside of Leland feeding on all of Leland's sorrow for everything that he's done and experienced. And so I feel like that's made him stronger, and that's why he is able to take such like a huge control of him right now, is because he's feeding on so much of Leland's like internal
like how the
stuff.
Dementors affect Harry more because he has more sadness to feed on.
All right.
Therefore, they find more joy. As many Harry Potter references as I can.
We had already hit the quota, so I was trying to, our advertisers are going to pull out.
James is kind of like Ron, and Donna's kind of like Hermione. And by kind, I mean exactly.
Oh, gosh. Not at all.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Is David Lynch religious at all?
Yes,
he got
sort
some,
of.
like, Buddhism
He's really
and
into
stuff?
he's really into transcendental meditation, and is a huge believer in collective consciousness. So, like a very spiritual person.
All right. Just curious, like, sort of. I'm just moving forward, seeing if that informs my viewing at all. Going forward into this.
Yeah,
Okay,
no,
cool.
that's a good question, and that's there's a lot we could talk about with that for sure.
Okay.
Going forward,
DMT.
No, you have no idea. Does he believe in astral projection?
I don't know, honestly. I know that he's really into transcendental meditation and he hates drugs. I know that about David Lynch.
Why?
because it creates artificial experiences, he believes.
Okay, so
Yeah.
very much not connected.
But I mean, I think the transcendental meditation thing, like that's been a thing that he's been doing since the 60s. I feel like that informs all of his work. And especially hearing stories about stuff that happens on set. Like we've mentioned several times, the story of Bob, how Bob came to be was Frank Silva was a set dresser and trapped himself in that room because he moved like a dresser in the wrong place, and someone was like, don't get stuck in that room, Frank. And David Lynch was like, holy shit, what if there was a guy stuck in that room? And that was when they got the shot of him at the foot of her bed, like through the bars, and David Lynch was like, I guess we'll see where this goes. And a year later they started shooting all these episodes that heavily center around Bob. And
have we talked about this?
I feel
a
like
little
we brought
bit.
it up.
No, I
mentioned
mentioned that.
Yeah,
Man, I did not know any of this.
Yeah. So
That's crazy.
You mentioned that he happened into it, but does that mean that going into this, David Lynch didn't originate with the idea that?
well, that was when they were shooting the pilot.
Okay.
That was long before these episodes. You know what I
you're
mean?
thinking,
So like,
even though the pilot opens with Laura Palmer's dead, that's huge piece of our premise.
yeah.
He didn't already have. I mean, maybe he had some of the Fire Walk with Me stuff sorted out, but
Yeah.
he may not have had the whole duality.
Not in pre-production.
Interesting.
Like a lot of that stuff got figured out during production of the pilot. And the international pilot, Bob is a huge part of that. Bob and Mike are.
Can
a
we
huge
watch
part
that
of the
now, or is
international-
that no?
Yeah, you could.
So
You could.
right, you say the international pilot. It I guess I don't know if it wraps up very nicely, but there is a killer revealed at the end.
Yeah.
And is it Leland?
No.
Okay.
It is.
Ooh.
It's.
Is this
the
on your
international
Blu-ray?
pilot? Yes, I think. Yeah, it is. Honestly, you can watch the international pilot. I don't know. It's going to give you a ton of insight into other stuff going forward, because it really was like. You can tell watching the pilot, this was a thing they contractually had to do. And Bob is actually a physical being that they find. If you remember from Cooper's dream, where he's like, Mike, can you hear me? Like that. He's in like this boiler room place. Cooper and Truman find him there, and he has this long spiel, and then Mike shoots and kills him. And that's kind of the end of it. Like that's the end. It's a really weird thing. It's interesting to go back and watch now.
So does Bob as a physical being? Is he the murderer?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
I'm trying to remember. It's been a while since I've watched it, so I can't remember all the specifics of how they tie that up.
Yeah.
But yeah, he is a person, essentially.
Wait, so does Bobby's friend Mike or?
No, I'm talking about, sorry, Mike,
Duality
one-arm
okay,
Mike,
okay.
yeah.
One-arm Mike.
So yeah,
That's interesting.
stuff.
Yeah.
So there's, we'll probably talk a lot about production this season, honestly, because there's some shit that happens kind of going forward. But yeah, so let's talk. Let's just kind of finish out a little bit about these episodes. Let's talk really quick. So we've talked about basically all of Leland's stuff. They discover Maddie at the end of this episode. But prior to that, let's talk a little bit about Ben and Jerry Horn, because I think they have some of my favorite scenes. Oh wait, sorry. One thing before we go to that. I do just want to recognize the line. There's a line that Cooper sends a message to Diane about Mike. And this is what he says about Mike. It's one of my favorite lines. It feels like Cooper is also pitching a podcast at NPR. He says, in another time, another culture, he may have been a seer, a shaman priest. In our world, he's a shoe salesman and lives in the shadows.
Yeah. Such a good line.
That's an opening to an NPR podcast if I've ever heard one. Like, what the... God, it's so good. But yeah, okay, sorry. Let's go to Jerry. You're very excited. I want you to talk about Jerry.
I have one quick question before we talk about Ben and Jerry.
Yes.
Also, have we talked about Ben and Jerry, like the relationship between Ben, their names Ben and Jerry? Whatever. All right, it's too late. Anyways,
Before or after the ice cream was invented? When was that company founded?
I think Ben and Jerry's
they've been around for a while.
Like the
I wanna
80s,
say,
right?
Like the
Yeah,
60s
at least,
even.
yeah.
Quick question about episode 8. Scott Frost, related to Mike
Brother
Frost.
of Mark Frost, yes.
Or Mike Frost. Mark Frost, yes. How has he done any other episodes beforehand? Because I don't remember seeing his name.
I do believe he did work on a couple in the first season. He also wrote the autobiography of Dale Cooper that released between seasons 1 and 2.
Okay.
So he's like worked on the show in a capacity. I'm pretty sure he's written earlier episodes as well, but yeah.
Interesting. Okay. Let's talk about the fucking weird ass flashback Ben and Jerry have in the prison.
Speaking of things that last too long,
Yeah.
That scene to me so feels like, listen, we want you to come in and do something a little how do I say, lynchy. Could you do something a little lynchy? Like, I absolutely can do something lynchy. Can you get me the rights to a song from the 50s? Like, God.
Also, we only have this camera that shoots 5 frames a second.
Yeah. And honestly, I don't know. I wasn't able to confirm this. That the woman dancing in that looks so much like Audrey Horne to me.
Yeah.
It looks so much like Sherilyn Fenn. And I'm like, what a weird other level to that, if that's true. But yeah, what a bizarre thing. All triggered by prison bunk beds.
Bunk beds. Which he's wearing his suit still in prison. They're smoking.
Yeah.
Apparently, Jerry's been disbarred in several states. I didn't even know he was a lawyer.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite. Let's talk about Jerry as a lawyer, because it's one of my favorite parts of this show. When he's like, hey, settle down. My client has rights. And Cooper's like, oh, I'm surprised you know that, seeing as how it took you 3 times to pass the bar and you can't perform law in these states. He's like, all right.
When Cooper slaps the book, the diary down, and he's like, "You know what this is?" And he whispers in his ear, "A book. It's a book."
It's the best. It's such a great lawyer move. Like,
A book.
Just generic as possible.
it's so good.
At the end, he's like, you should probably get...
I strongly advise you
Yeah.
to get a good lawyer.
As your lawyer, your friend, and your brother, I advise you to get a better lawyer. Which he doesn't do. And then he's like, listen, you either let my client go or charge him with murder. And they're like, okay, you're charged with murder.
Also, what a great scene between
Cooper.
Cooper and the sheriff afterwards, where
Yeah.
he's like, "I think you're jumping the gun on this. Like, I don't think he's the murderer." And Cooper, like, just backs off eventually. He's like, "Hey, like, this is your backyard. You do what you got to do."
Yeah.
Just such
Sheriff
like
Truman's
great
like,
respect.
you know what? I'm done with all the mysticism, and I'm like, how could you? Like, after the faith you've confessed in this man, he's the best lawman you've ever met. Those words came out of your mouth, you ungrateful sack of crap.
Let's not forget that Truman's love just left to Hong Kong.
I mean, blue balls can make you just
yeah. Listen, the
angry.
only thing that compares the sex is getting that conviction. Throwing someone in the clink for something you've been just banging your head against the wall for 2 weeks, and finally you get the guy. I mean, you can't be beat.
If you can't use your sperm gun, use your badge.
I feel like that's a whole nother level of a whole nother discussion we could have of
Yeah.
politics behind law enforcement.
That's the name of my coming graphic novel. What'd we miss, Tyler?
Well, yeah. So I think, I mean, is there anything else that you guys want to say around the Ben Horn stuff? Riley, did you have something?
It's, I guess it's kind of around that, like, before Gerard comes in and is like, he's not the guy, he, like, wakes up in his hotel room and breaks out, essentially, and he, like, runs away.
Oh.
Yeah. So Mike is still on the hunt.
Yeah.
Like, Mike knows that Bob is still on the lam. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, he's out there.
It's interesting how much information he's giving them, and it makes me wonder, like, I think we thought they might be in cahoots early on, and now it doesn't seem like he has altruistic motivations, but he's also, like, telling them things that is going to harm another being like him. I just wonder some of the origins of his thought, because if he's saying Bob feeds on sorrow, it's like, okay, so is Mike the same possessive type of being, but not pursuing those same things?
Right.
I just want to know.
Didn't Mike say that he's on a mission from God?
Yeah.
Like,
Oh,
Yeah.
he says from God?
He talks about how they're partners, and that's why he doesn't have an arm. He cut off his arm because we learned that presumably that the tattoo that was on that arm did not say mom, but said like firewalk with me. That makes another appearance in that. And and removing that arm was part of him turning away from that. And and he does say, "I saw the face of God," whatever that means.
This makes me want to binge. I just want to know.
The giant is God.
Cool.
Oh, I don't know.
God's cool. It's not how I pictured God.
Something odd with these episodes is when Mike escapes, this random deputy comes in and he knocks him out. And I'm like, I've never seen this guy before. I thought I knew all the cops in Twin Peaks. And then when they finally find Maddie's body at the end, tons of cops. Like, who are all these guys? I've never seen.
Yeah,
you're not from around here.
Hot cops will clean up the town.
Yeah, it's.
Am I going crazy, or is that the
No,
first
I
time we've
noticed
ever
that.
seen any other
There's
cops?
the cop in the hospital, the deputy gets knocked out. There's the cop who lets Pete Martell to see Jerry, who's got like this mustache, who I've never seen before. And then all those ones that show up. Cloning facility, ladies and gentlemen. They're just pumping out.
They all look like Andy.
They used his sperm that they found in the corner. Oh my goodness! They're all Andy's children.
I'm a whole damn town.
Holy fucking hell! We did it. We did it.
You can shut down Reddit now.
We figured it out. Damn, we're good.
Well, this has been the last episode. But yeah, so
I mean, I know that's not right, but holy shit,
there's some dots connected there.
I like what we did there. That was cool.
All right. Well, I mean, is there anything else in these episodes that we didn't cover that people are dying to say? I will say a huge demerit on the David Lynch episode for me is the ending of that episode. We have that amazing shot of Cooper just completely washed out with light, kind of looking. Then those curtains are superimposed over his face. And then immediately on screen, Piper Laurie as Tajimura and Catherine Martell. And it's like, could we get a second, please? We don't have to think about this shit. But it's just like, I don't know. It's one of those things that I'm like, man, her contract also said, like, I need top billing, but I will let this thing go because it's such a great goof we're going to do in the audience. But immediately when they know I need that top billing again, like, what a bizarre thing. But yeah, so next week, we're going to watch 3 episodes next week, episodes 9 through 11. Don't read into that at all. And then we'll come back and talk about those. But in the meantime, any recommendations from people around the table here? Stuff you've been watching can help people bide their time between episodes of Twin Peaks.
Man, I honestly haven't been
Week.
watching a lot of
busy
content.
holiday week.
Yeah, that's true. I will say I saw 3 movies this week, guys.
Please discuss.
I saw Toy Story 4. Solely on your recommendation. I never would have gone to that shit if Marcus hadn't told me to do it.
What did you think?
I loved
honestly?
it. It was great. It was a wonderful movie. I cried like a little baby. Every Toy Story movie, I just cry. I'm just the worst. But yeah, and then me and Riley went and saw Midsummer and Spider-Man also. Yeah. I mean, I'm not going to publicly recommend Midsummer. I can't. I don't think I enjoy those movies.
No.
They are incredible. They're absolutely incredible.
So, okay, you like the horror genre a lot, but Midsummer, was it too much for you? It seems like...
I feel like I watch a lot of horror movies, and so when I see them, I want it to be like jump scares and like weird shit like that. And so like Hereditary and Midsummer, I don't really like, 'cause it's more of just the gross, like just really like shocking, gross things. And I'm not super into that. Like I want like a slasher or a ghost or something.
Does it affect you though? Okay. Like, does like the whole warped sensibility and like the intensity and of it, like, does it keep you up? Does it actually freak you out at all?
No.
Did it freak you out at all?
Because like I
had a
this
moment
among
I can talk about for sure,
horror people who like love horror.
Yeah,
they don't all the horror movies that you like. they tell me they don't like.
Yeah.
Thank you. No, I will say this. Hereditary and Midsummer share this idea of pushing you past the boundaries of what you are able to see. I've talked about this with The Witch, too. The Witch shows you some very shocking things. The Witch always keeps you at a safe distance, though. Just safe enough. Like, it's like if it was too close, it'd be too... If it was a little bit closer, it'd be too much. Midsummer and Hereditary have these extremely shocking things, but that's not what they're about. Like, those movies are about... This is entirely my opinion. I'm not saying this definitively. To me, Hereditary is a movie about family trauma and how that carries through generations. And to me, Midsummer is about the damage that we do to each other in relationships, in romantic relationships.
Subject.
Yeah, well, and I think that's why those movies work so well. Is to me that shocking imagery is there. But underlying all of that, just below that, is the most raw human emotion. You know?
Yeah, there's a bigger picture.
Yeah. There's something more. It's not a Serbian film. It's not hard candy. There are plenty of movies that shock you to shock you. I think Ari Aster shocks you. So that he can sneak behind you and stab you in the most secret places of your heart. Like, he really like...
That was incredible.
Like, I feel like that shock serves a purpose. That being said, it's not for everyone. Like, I'm not... I can't full-heartedly recommend that. What I can say is I think about those movies constantly. And they're not movies that that's not the genre I'm typically into, but there's something there that is not present in other movies. They're unique.
Interesting.
Like,
How's Florence Pugh?
God, I'm okay. This I will declare definitively.
I do
2019 is the year of Florence Pugh. Mark it on your calendars and get
who
with
that
the
is.
program. She's been in 2 movies this year. Probably. She may have been in more. I've seen 2 movies with her this year. She was in Fighting with My Family, the WWE produced movie
So
that
good.
is so good that everyone needs to see.
Oh, is it? Is it really?
It's so fun.
Fantastic.
Here's the thing.
Delightful.
You have seen that story before. You have seen the story that is told in Fighting with My Family, but it tells it so well, and it's great. It's just a good hero's journey popcorn flick. It's really fun, and she's great in it, and she's amazing.
Is she the main girl in it?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And she's going to be in Little Women later this year.
Yeah.
With
is that the Greta
Gerwig and Saoirse Ronan and Emma Watson are all in that. So
yeah.
That's a pretty
What
good
a
year.
cast.
She's probably in something else too.
I do want to know, how was Spider-Man?
Yeah.
It's good.
Here's the thing. You know my opinion on the whole genre,
I don't
right?
think you're gonna like it.
No? Okay.
Did you
Because
like Homecoming?
No, I was so disappointed by Homecoming. Because
don't go
I
see it.
love Spider-Man so much that and I love Tom Holland as Spider-Man. And so I want it to be good and I want to see them. And even after my disappointment with Homecoming, I was like, man, I'm ready for the next one, because I just like Spider-Man, and so it disappoints me that.
Yeah, I will say I'm not a huge fan of Captain Marvel. Not for the reasons that huge corners of the internet are fine. I love Brie Larson. I love women.
1 minute rant, real quick.
Yeah.
I hate sharing an opinion on whether a movie is good or bad, but I have completely different reasons than these fucking assholes on the internet, and I get lumped in with them. Anyone who says The Last Jedi is bad is because, you don't like Asians or black people. I'm like,
I knew
fuck
it.
that. That's
I knew
why
it.
I like both those people in that movie.
Yeah, no, that's.
I hate Ryan Johnson, that white little twat.
I will say, Captain Marvel to me felt like that movie felt rushed, and it felt like they had to fill a space between whatever the one was before that and the next Avengers movie and set some things up. And I think the writing is not great.
For me, it didn't know what it wanted to be.
Yeah. It's really conflicted. And there are moments of that in Spider-Man. It very much feels like the connective tissue between what we just saw and what is coming.
Interesting.
But I will say I really love the core cast of those movies. Like Tom Holland, I think, is great. Zendaya is I love her in that movie. Like that read on Mary Jane is cool. It's totally original and it's really fun. And I also like his guy in the chair, Ned.
Oh, yeah.
He's great. He's a goofball.
How's Jake? How's our boy Jake?
Great.
Oh, I
like
thought
his
Jake did
performance a
so.
lot. Yeah.
And especially, I don't know how much there's to give away, but like there's a duality to his role, and he's just so good in it.
Yeah.
And part of it is just like these kids on a European vacation, which I'm a big fan of Lizzie McGuire movies, so you already know I'm into it. It's so good. Like, no, but really, you have fun with the kids' gore movie, and you are dealing with some of the falling technically, this is the end of Phase 3, right? You are dealing with some of the falling action of Endgame, but like they refer to the people who disappeared a lot, and it's kind of a casual part of the world, and he's dealing with some residual Tony Stark emotion, and I think Tom Holland does a great job at that.
Yeah,
and so to me, I had fun with it. I think every Marvel movie at this point, it feels a little bit convoluted. Like, I'm happy to spend that much time in this world, but there's a 105-minute version of this movie that's a little bit better.
Yeah.
I will say probably the two best stingers post-credits things for one of these movies in a while.
I will say one of them for sure is the best one I've seen in a long time.
That's what I've heard. Yeah, that's what I've heard.
Here's the thing. If you love Spider-Man and you didn't... You should, I guess, watch it when it comes out on video. It's not going to be a waste of 2 hours of your life. Maybe it's a waste of $10 if you don't go on a Tuesday or something. But I enjoy spending time with Tom and him being Spider-Man, and also like the two teachers who chaperone the field trip are just a
Martin
freaking
Starr's
delight.
really good. So is JB
Martin,
Smoove.
Oh,
they're really
JB
good.
Smoove. It makes no sense, but it's so
Yeah. But yeah, so those are the movies I saw and the way too long opinions I have on them.
Recreations have now reached the longer part of the podcast.
Justin, did you have anything you wanted to?
My recommendations, I've just been watching stuff you guys have recommended. So
cool.
I got to Spider-Verse this morning actually is what I watched this morning. So,
Oh, nice.
And what'd you think?
It's my favorite Marvel movie.
So good.
So good. Oh, has anybody started? I know a lot of people are super hyped about Stranger Things coming back.
I
Fourth of July.
did.
I'm
start
for
that,
in.
Yeah.
I watched it all in one sitting.
Oh,
That's
wow.
if I would have done that if I was
Yeah.
out of town with family,
I'm
or I
3 episodes in, and I will say briefly, like, I enjoyed season 2. Season 2 had a lot of fun things, but as far as the story goes, or anything, or any like pushing characters to their limits or anything, like I'm not on board with it as much as I was. Or something that hurt season 2 that's starting to hurt season 3, and something better change quick is the fear of the unknown, and learning that slowly and having that slowly unveiled did so much for season 1 that lacked in season 2 in my opinion, and I feel like is lacking in season 3 so far.
There's a couple of key parts I really like in season 3 so far, and one of them is kind of the evil presence, and that's all I want to say, because I mean, you find out a couple things really quickly, but I like that they spend time at the mall. The way this one hits on the 80s and everybody's teamed up again, which it's a little frustrating, because actually, like Twin Peaks, all these different groups have a little bit of information. If they'd sit in a fucking room together and start talking, then maybe they'd figure some shit out. But it's a little bit of I am enjoying it more than 2. I was not disappointed in 2, but clearly 1, and this was originally going to be an anthology series. 1 was like this really fun, sweet piece of television that will, hopefully we can separate out if we need to. But 3 to me seems like a step up.
Really?
From 2 so far.
Yeah.
I have some thoughts, but I want to hear what Riley thinks since you've watched the entire thing.
Oh.
Rank the sequels.
I can do that. 1, 3, 2.
Okay.
Oh,
I really liked 3. I thought they did some like cool stuff with it, and I liked the relationships that they built between characters. And I feel like it kind of balanced out the darkness of what's really happening in season 3 with like they're still kind of being kids for a second before they have to do crazy shit. So
You forget these are a little dark and like fairly graphic. They're a good amount of and this one here's the thing with Stranger Things, they're leaning into the references in the 80s and the teen thing. You got to realize they might be overdoing they're growing up, they're older than they were last year in this season, but I enjoy that. Like, give me that coming of age 80s shit all day.
I think for me, I think they're overdoing the 80s thing. I'm only like 2 or 3 episodes in, so obviously I can't.
I'm only
form
one more than
a
that.
whole opinion about it, but for me, it felt like a very dramatic shift to me, where things feel very much more campy, where it feels almost like this show. Excuse me. It could have been made in the 80s versus it takes place in the 80s, and you can tell they have a higher budget, so they're using more pop culture songs and references.
They use a
and
couple
Their song budget is
expensive
great.
it's all over the place.
But I mean, sometimes it's a little too on the nose, but man, I love when some of those songs come on with that moment. I don't know. Maybe that is just leaning into me and me enjoying that camp, but you're right. Season 1 was a little bit more like, this is the 80s. We're going to have some music. The dress is accurate, but it's a small town. And this season feels a little bit more like Madonna, The Mall.
And I just love the soundtrack, like the dark synth. But I'm excited to see where it goes because I can see definitely some very dark things happening, which is super interesting. But it feels like just too much of a shift to this campiness that doesn't fit. But I don't know. Maybe my opinion will change. We'll have to see.
I've been pretty on board with it. Like there's some weaknesses, but I'm been pretty on board with it. Anyway, this is a Stranger Things podcast now.
Yeah, if you're still here, that means you're into recommendations, and if you're into recommendations, why don't you just recommend this podcast to your friends and get them to start watching Twin Peaks? Because it's way more fun to watch with friends, I think.
Fact.
So, and also, if you've got any questions or are mad that we missed stuff, which we probably did, email us at rewatchersonthepod@gmail.com. Or follow us on Twitter at RewatchersPod and tweet at us.
We've been getting some interaction on Twitter lately. It's fun. We appreciate it.
Yeah, we're glad to see some love for our Halloween Town fan theories. And I don't know, maybe we'll have to watch Halloween Town at some point as a little bonus episode to connect the dots a little bit further. But yeah, that's it for this week. We'll watch the next 3 episodes and be back to talk to you about them next week. Signing off. I'm Tyler Harris.
Marcus Marinos.
Riley Harris.
Tyler McKinley.
Mitchell Marshall.
Justin Hammer.
See you later.